Well, good Sunday morning, and thank you for watching Beyond the Headlines. Liberation Day. They do it to us, we do it to them. In other words, what the president meant to say, it's not personal, it's just business. It started this past Wednesday when President Trump announced reciprocal tariffs on imports from over 90 countries, notably missing some of our biggest trading partners, Canada and Mexico, both spared from this round of tariffs. And in the immediate aftermath, a plunging global market, plans for economic retaliation around the world, and attacks from the president's critics warning of the possibilities of higher prices and recession risks. But the president's allies say the bill has come due, and even if there's a short-term pain, it'll be traded in for a long-term gain. Some administration officials say the old days are over.
Key is for these countries to understand that they've been exploiting the great American economy. It's like they were living in our house, right? Borrowing our car, going in the refrigerator and grabbing a bite to eat. And now President Trump has said, come on, the free riding is over. Let's make things fair.
Well, that's where we're going to begin this morning's discussion. Joining us in the studio this morning is Congressman Henry Cuellar, as well as Laredo Motor Carrier Association Chairman Jerry Maldonado, and of course we've got KGNS General Manager Luis Villarreal with us. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you all so much for making time in y'all's busy schedule to join us this morning.
Good morning.
Okay, where do we begin this discussion? Because lots of people are just so worried about what's happening right now. Automobile industry, buying cars, do we not? Do we hold off on, life itself? We'll start with you, Congressman.
Okay, I'll start off. Well, first of all, just on the first day, we estimate that this will be the largest tax since the 1940s, $980 billion, not by Congress, because Article 1 of the Constitution says Congress is the only one that can put a tax or a duty, a tariff. So we're going to see the largest tax increase in the last, since the 40s. We also saw, I think the first day, the stock market lost $3.1 trillion on the first day. I think that tells you what companies are thinking, what the private sector are looking at. And again, this doesn't even include what the other folks are going to be retaliating against us. So it's going to be, I don't know how liberated we're going to be from taxes and savings that we've lost. A lot of people, we were just talking about a little earlier. I haven't even looked at my savings because I'm afraid to see what happened with the stock market. But it's one of those things that we have to look at very carefully. I always look at Economics 101. We got certain countries have economic advantages. We do it better than other countries. Other countries do things better than we do. And you have trade. We have been looking at this trade. Now it looks like we're looking at something that's very different. It's going back to, I guess, the Smoot-Hawley taxes or tariffs that we saw. We've seen this before and didn't work very well in the past.
So what's the short-term and the long-term effect of this, and is there a way to turn it at any point right now?
It's interesting because Congress holds this power. But very honestly, when you don't have divided government and somebody controls the House, the Senate, and the President, they're not going to go against the President. So
why not?
Why not ask our Republican friends?
I would like to know why not.
They're afraid they're going to get primaried. I mean, the President has a lot of power. He has a lot of power, and if he goes almost every primary that he's been involved with, not every time, but almost every time, he's been able to primary folks, so they don't want to go against that. They're afraid of that threat.
Wow. Well, and not to change the subject or anything, but the election that Elon Musk just gave $1 million to and was not successful.
There was a lot more than that. He was giving out a check for $1 million, but it was a lot more.
The one specific one that they were looking at and the candidate lost, some were saying that maybe that was obviously, a little hint of maybe some folks fighting back,
Yeah,
but
and you're right, because look, we were looking at two elections. One was Wisconsin,
right.
And that one was more of a swing. But the Democrat won, and I think it gave a mandate on Musk and some of the policies have been coming down. The other one were the 2 special elections in
Florida, right.
The president had won those by over 30%. And he lost, or the candidates lost about 16%. So from being this red to this over here tells you a lot.
Right.
Midterm elections, and I know there are Republicans that want to run, including in my district, they have to look at what's going to happen. Midterms, usually whoever's the president, that the House will be losing a lot of, on that. And that's the reality. It's going to have, the Republicans are going to have really wins against them. When it comes in. And we haven't even looked at not only this tax increase, not only the stocks that we're looking at, the savings, but we haven't even got to the reconciliation. And talking to people today, I mean, just a few days ago, I was talking to Jorge Leal from Laredo Medical Center. They're worried about the $980 billion cuts of Medicaid. Talk to the doctors, talk to the hospitals. We haven't even got to that yet. So it's going to be difficult for Republicans. I think the Senate will probably stay Republican, but the House, I feel very confident we will win it back. And again, not just being a party person, but what I'm saying is it's good to have checks and balances.
Agreed.
Right.
Not to change the subject like Mindy said, but we can talk about the Republicans and the Democrats for a long time. Jerry, let's bring down to Laredo and to our economy. What is your view of this right now?
It's a negative effect immediately, unfortunately, in transportation, in the supply chain, and everything that we do. Our job is to move product from point A to point B. In this case, from Mexico to the U.S., Mexico to Canada, and vice versa. Ever since the tariff talks, the language started, there was uncertainty in the market. People stopped investing in things. People stopped buying things. So that affects all of us as consumers, and it affects us in transportation because there's less product for our drivers to move from point A to point B. In a nutshell, the tariff is not good for business. It's not good for our business. It's not good for the supply chain.
Okay, so now I'm asking both of you, if it's so bad and it is the most terrible thing it's ever done, how is it that it's not being allowed to happen? I get that it's the president doing it, but what I'm saying is, obviously there are some people out there that agree with the process. If it's so wrong,
Navarro and
why
some of his advisors
are there
have
not
that.
more disagreement? Why is there no more
Why does he think that it's a
pushback?
good thing?
Why does he think it's a good
Yeah,
thing?
I mean, with all of the negative
there's
publicity out
certain
there.
economic thinking out there. They just feel that if you put tariffs and you make it high enough where people don't buy products from
We'll build more things here.
They will build more. They're talking about manufacturing coming back here. But think about it. If you're a CEO and you're saying, look, they're trying to get me to invest billions and billions of dollars here. Do I do that right now, or do I wait 3.5 years?
Right, to
and
see what happens.
It might change.
Well, he's going to get reelected.
You
though.
know what?
For a third term.
If he's able to get the Constitution on that, but we can talk about that.
We
for
can
a long
talk about
time.
that.
But anyway, but it's going to be an analysis, a cost-benefit analysis that companies are going to do that. But the uncertainty right now is affecting us right now.
And I think we feel that uncertainty, unfortunately, with these discussions, because we're not even giving it enough time to do anything. We're just
Well,
It's a numbers game.
But think about it. Not given enough time, the stock market tanked 3.1 trillion.
because people were reacting to the news and to all of the hype. And
So if somebody lost monies because their savings in stock, what do you tell them? Don't worry about it. It's a low pain. Things will get better.
well, if you go back in history, Congressman, you'll see that has always been the case. People lose money and get money. I mean, and eventually we'll still have a growth at the end of the year. I hope. We still have a growth at the end of the year. But I guess what I'm saying is, and I think your point about the CEOs saying, okay, well, you know what, I'm just going to ride this out until it happens. So if those things are so obvious, why is there not more pushback? And
from the Republic, again, look,
you had four senators that already broke away.
Four senators for Canada.
For Canada.
Not for Mexico, just for Canada.
Okay.
Because they were saying, look, tariffs and taxes belong to Congress under Article 1. well, I wasn't there, but Congress gave the power to presidents that under an emergency, which is usually a war, under emergency, they can take certain economic emergency steps. He's using that to impose the tariffs across the board. Across the board, 10% across the board. Japan gets 24%, an ally. Europe gets 20%. China gets a much higher. And of course, across the board, which includes the great island of Hurt and McDonald's, which is in the Antarctic. There's no people there, but guess what? There's penguins. 10% tariffs? I mean, look, what I'm
Poor
saying,
penguins.
look, if you read the president's The Art of the Deal, he uses leverage. And I can understand the threat of a tariff to use that leverage to say, hey, Europe, you better change this. But some of those countries have zero
So
tariffs.
what's the point?
The point is, why are you using an axe? Why are you using a chainsaw to do this when you ought to be selectively saying, country, if you don't negotiate, we're going to go ahead and do it. But to do it across the board creates this uncertainty.
Right.
And it has an immediate impact.
It does.
Just the fact that nobody's investing, just the fact that people are saying, well, I'm going to hold off from
And I'm
buying.
not going to buy, and I'm not going to do this.
That has an impact already.
Agreed.
And it's
happening already. It started, that changed since January, since he took office. It's a numbers game at the end of the day. We understand, the language that he has said, it varies, right? But his initial thought in this was he's doing this to Mexico, for example, to try to get them to help in the human trafficking and the drugs.
Fentanyl and all that.
As an industry, as a human being, we support that.
Sure, we do.
Do we believe that the tariffs is the right way to go? No, we don't. Because it affects our industry, number one. And like you mentioned, the CEO, the guy that makes the decisions, where am I going to build my factory? Where am I going to produce my product? It's a numbers game. And at the end of the day, they have to evaluate. If I'm going to pay an additional 10%, an additional 25%, well, let me reword that. Not if I'm going to pay, if my consumers are going to pay that, right? Is that better than moving my whole operation to Texas?
Oh, and then
than
you have
moving
the-
my whole operation to Michigan, because then you have to look at the cost. At the end of the day, if this is what I'm selling every single day, it has to be affordable to people, right? So it's a numbers game. And yes, people can just say, I'll wait 3.5 years more, and then I'll be okay, because this can go away, with a new administration. It's uncertainty. It's bad for business, for transportation, because, like we said earlier, everybody is at a halt. People
Who's
are.
it good for? Let's talk about that one.
So who is it good for?
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. We're going to take a break.
answer
But
no
this is
question.
a great segue to our upcoming conversation. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us. We're back with our guest, Congressman Henry Cuellar and Laredo Motor Carrier Association Chairman Jerry Maldonado, continuing our conversation on everything tariffs. Gentlemen, thank you so much for sticking around. We didn't scare you too much in the first segment. You all stuck around for the second segment. We want to continue our conversation, and I apologize, I cut you off, but we wanted to continue where we stopped off. So
I said,
all
who's
of this
it good
benefiting?
for?
Yeah.
And I guess crickets?
I guess I'll start. His intentions are good. So let's
Do you
start
think?
with
Okay,
that.
so the intention being, let's bring the labor force back into the country. Let's create jobs so that we don't become just a consumer
And
country and
service-oriented.
service-oriented.
And use it to, as leverage to negotiate things that he wants with our neighbors to the north and to the south. That portion, I could lean to say the intention is good. The final product, what it's actually creating, is not so good. It doesn't seem like it's going to be so good.
Well, and I think, as I was mentioning earlier, I think one of the problems that you have is that they're on top of all the obvious effects and all the real effects of this. Then you have, I guess the best way I can call it is price gouging, because you have companies that take advantage of the situation and say, hey, I'm going to have to sell this more expensive because of all this stuff happening. We saw it during
We
COVID.
experienced it during COVID.
Everybody was oh, it's the supply chain, or is this.
Everything
Easy to
was-
point the
Everything,
finger.
and there were a lot of people that were making a lot of extra money
Right.
with the excuse of this happening. I'm afraid that this is
Exactly.
happening already
Exactly.
in this situation.
and the problem
there are
is-
products out there that have not been hit with tariffs that have already been raised in prices because
You can use that as an excuse.
you can, absolutely,
Yeah.
even though it hasn't taken effect yet.
Right.
And that's exactly what I think is going to happen, is you're going to have, let's say something has a 25% higher cost, and then you have somebody that's over here, they're going to say, well, you know, I can go up 3, 4, 5%. You know, I'm still below my competitor's price, and that's right. That's why the government, the administration, put out a statement said, "Hey, you better not be doing that." But you know,
Yeah.
how are they going to enforce
How
that?
much-
across
how
the
much-
board?
you know, that doesn't have any teeth.
So the things with tariffs are going to go up, and then American products, and keep in mind, American products are usually not 100% American products. You take a car,
Exactly.
an American car, it has 40, 50% foreign parts in it. So one way or the other, even American products are gonna go up because they're saying, I still be below my competitor's price.
So it's going to be hot
Yeah.
dogs and pizza.
You know, I don't understand why. I think it goes back to what we were saying right now. Why does he think this is a good thing? Does he think that he's the most popular dude in the whole world because he did this? I mean, there are
So
people struggling out there. How's anybody going to be able to afford a vehicle or
Listen,
anything
I've
like
always
that?
said it, and one of the things that I hate about this whole thing is that there are some things that he has done over the first 3 months that I am fully supportive of.
Agree.
Okay?
Me too.
I'm not necessarily on board with this whole thing on this side, but we're in an environment right now where you're pushed to either be 100% in or 100% out, and
There you
there's
go.
not enough discussion. And that's what is troubling to me is that, listen, we can agree with him on certain things, but we should be able to disagree and push back on others. My biggest concern is that I don't think from a pride standpoint, he walks this back in any way, shape, or form. I think he's in this for the long haul, and the more you complain about it, the harder he's going to push, and it's scary.
It is. It's scary, and it's bad for business at the end of the day. And I agree. You know, there's things that he has done that we fully support. You know, and it's good for us. It's good for our community. It's good for our country. But this specific topic, you know, it's a tough one. It's a hard one. You know, we also, going back to another one, the border wall. We don't support that.
You're starting to hear rumblings. You know, Senator Cruz started to hint that there was a little bit of pushback. So I'm hopeful that
Yeah.
maybe you'll start hearing a little more of that. And
Well, you know, and you hit something that is so important in a democracy. You got to hear different voices. And right now, the voices, because one party controls the House, the Senate, the White House, you're not hearing the voices. You're not hearing all the voices itself. I'll give you an example. In appropriations, we were supposed to get the VA secretary to come and talk to us. I sit on that committee, and they canceled because they're cutting VA employees. And I guess they don't want to hear what some of us have to say. And I know Doug Collins, he's a friend of mine. I served with him. And like you said, there are things that we want to sit down with the president. Immigration, definitely I agree with the president on immigration. Number one, you know, on the issues of cutting, I'm for. I did.
At least look.
Yeah.
I mean, at least we're looking.
Look, I did my dissertation on performance-based budgeting. I'm for efficiency. I'm for effectiveness. I want to cut fat out there.
Great.
But using a doctor's example, you use a scalpel, not an axe or a chainsaw, because you cut into the bone and the meat of the surfaces on it. So I want to sit down and talk about it. You know, how do we get rid of the duplication of the waste? Number two. Number
And
three.
the abuse.
Even abuse. Even on the tariffs. I think we can sit down and talk about tariffs if they're targeted.
Specific industry, specific,
Yeah, exactly. We can do that. We can sit down, but to do it across the board, like the cuts are, or even the tariffs, that's where we're not hearing from other voices, and we want to hear. You know, I want to be able to discuss something.
And is
but
there
you
any
know,
opportunity for
No.
you guys to even
they
sit
don't
down
wanna
with him,
talk about
speak
it.
with him?
If we try to add an amendment, they will reject it. If we want to put something on the floor, they want to reject it. And that's the thing is they're not allowing debate, and any democracy needs to hear from different folks.
And you do need the extremes to push on both sides anyway, because they drive the conversation, but we're not talking.
Well, you know, the far left still is out there, the far right is still out there, but a lot of us in the middle,
Exactly.
you know, where most of the American public is at, we're not hearing from us because they're not allowing that debate.
Agreed.
And that's not good for policy making.
And that's the scariest part of this whole thing.
As an industry, you know, all the way up to the American Trucking Association, we have sent letters, you know, where we tell the administration. When we went recently with the Chamber of Commerce, you know, up to DC, you know, we share our thoughts of, hey, you know, let's have a communication about this. We don't agree 100% with the tariff talk, but like he said, they're not. It seems that they don't want to listen. I'm sure they get the letters. I'm sure they see them, but there is no conversation, you know, to find a middle ground and have a conversation that it won't affect as it's affecting right now.
You know, I sat down with I spoke to the American Trucking Association 2 weeks ago. They had the Canadian Trucking Association and they had the Mexican Trucking Association. So you had American Trucking, Canadian and Mexican. And let me tell you, they're worried about it. Like you were saying, it's not only us, but the Mexicanos and the Canadians are worried about what happened. They were telling me, because we were looking at a rig, and they're saying that depending on how it ends up, a rig, you know, could have a tariff of somewhere from $25 to $30 to $35,000 a rig.
Wow.
Additionally, on every truck.
Tell me how that's going to make companies grow when people are cutting back, and then your cost to buy a rig, $25 to $30 to $35,000, depending on the rig. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Wow.
Only Jerry Garza could afford that.
There goes the car that I needed to buy.
There goes the new car, Mindy.
Exactly. Oh, well, we're going to be riding a bicycle to work.
That's right. So I'm instituting a carpooling thing here at the station.
Yeah, we're going to have to go down that road.
So, I mean, before we go, Congressman Jerry, what is the job of us, the average citizen, on this thing? Because you're going to say, well, keep talking. Well, we're talking to you. It's your job now to take it over there. But what else
they're not
can,
listening
what else
to,
can we do?
to
Who
anyone
else do we
else.
talk to?
Look, in appropriations, this is one where we have a lot of debate. We cover every topic in appropriations. They're even limiting what we can do there.
Wow.
I mean, it's amazing. And
So do you just write it out for 3.5 years?
No. Well, maybe next year there might be some checks and balances. Let's
go.
But right now, we want to continue reaching out to the administration, you know, to the secretaries. You know, I've talked to the Defense Secretary, I've talked to the Homeland Secretary, I've talked to your friend Stephen Miller at the White House, I've talked to other folks. We want to have conversations. And like you said, you hit something that's very, very important. If you can't have conversations, how are you going to develop good policy? Okay. But if they say, here's an executive order, done. Here's an executive order, your letters, your phone calls, your visits.
Don't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Wow.
That's not good.
Okie doke. Well, when we come back, we're going to take a look back at the week and the one thing our panelists cannot stop thinking about. Stay with us. Okay, our one thing, we're going to do a lightning round of March Madness. Basketball gets underway this weekend. It's the Final Four. So, women's, we're starting with the Final Four in the women's division. Who do y'all think?
South Carolina.
South Carolina, Congressman.
Texas.
I go Texas too. Woohoo! But we also have, that's your overall pick. So we're looking at the bracket right now. UConn Huskies versus UCLA. Who do you think on that side?
UConn.
UConn? Okay, Congressman?
Let's stick with Texas.
You're going to stay with Texas overall. We need the whole thing. Okay, let's go to the men.
We have
so on the men's side, we've got Duke versus Houston, and then Auburn versus Florida.
Well, Cougars.
Cougars all the way
Houston,
to the very end. Luis.
My bracket has Duke winning the whole thing, so I have to stick.
You got Duke winning the whole
Yeah,
thing?
that's what,
Oh, no, we're going Texas. We're going
All right,
Texas.
you
Texas for the
Texans.
women. We're going Houston, Texas for the men. Texas is going to win it the whole thing. The whole thing. Okie doke. Well, gentlemen, thank you all so much for joining us. We appreciate it. I know we're going to continue the conversation as things develop in Washington, which is all the time. So thank you so much, and we appreciate your time with us this morning. That does it for this segment of Beyond the Headlines, but make sure to catch us next Sunday for another episode. Have a fantastic week ahead.